वंदे भारत एक्सप्रेस ट्रेन
has been inaugurated.
रेलवे ने आज 304 ट्रेनों को रद्द किया है।
500 से अधिक यात्री ट्रेन आशंका पूर्ण रूप से रद्द हो चुकी है।
पैसेंजर्स ट्रेन के दरवाजे के पास बैठे तो कुछ लटके हुए भी नजर आए।
More than 280 people were killed in the crash involving two passenger trains.
Indian Railways is the fourth largest rail network in the world. But still, if a train arrives on time, it is hard to believe. The 70,000 kilometers long network carries millions of passengers daily. Sometimes, the same train carries the same passengers for 3 years. Jokes apart, railway has improved a lot in the last few years. Vande Bharat is a good thing. 25 new trains have been inaugurated. But there are 12,000 to 13,000 passenger trains too. Gaudy media never shows any news about them. There is no discussion about them. Oh. So there is no news about the development of these trains. Okay, let me tell you the rest of the story and the truth behind Vande Bharat. In today's episode, we will find out what happened in Balasore. What is the level of railway safety? What will be the impact of the vacancies in railways on you and me? What is the state of train delays? And has there been any development in railway expenses? And finally, will Indian Railways trains remain on the tracks? Or will there be more accidents like Balasore in the future? It has been 2 months since the Balasore accident. Almost 300 lives have been lost. One of the worst rail disasters in our country's history. But amidst the riots in Pakistan and Haryana, we have overlooked this incident. In the Commissioner of Railway Safety's report, it was found that the accident was caused by shortcomings in the signaling circuit alteration. A fault that had been there for a long time but was not reported. The result was that almost 300 lives were lost. The media and IT cell tried their best to give a communal and conspiracy angle to this unfortunate incident, but in the end, it turned out to be a matter of negligence. In 2022, CAG reported on this negligence. We were warned about it. In a report, it was said to study the signaling issues. But we did the same on that report. We said that everything is fine. After this accident, the government suspended many officers. 3 officers were taken into legal custody. People need instant action. People would have been happier if they had seen a bulldozer. But the real question is, why was no action taken on the issue of critical safety? If you are thinking that a minister will take moral responsibility for this incident, then forget it. But during the investigation, the Railway Ministry took a big decision. At least 300 lives were lost. It was decided that for critical safety issues like signaling, track, interlocking, etc., there should be no economic justification for financial approval. What does this mean? It means that before investing, the railways had to justify it economically, and until it was proved that the railways would not get a 10 to 12% gain, the proposal was not approved. So, your life versus 10% profit. After losing 300 lives, the railways' focus shifted to human lives. So, passenger trains were in danger. And so were the freight trains. Now we know that the German freight trains have a bogie-mounted brake system. On October 26, 2022, a 54-bogie freight train was passing through Jharkhand-Dhanbad when its brakes failed. Then, authorities removed all the trains from the route, so that the 90 km/h train could pass without any accident. Later, it was found that this was not the first report of a broken brake system. Between 2021 and 2022, 80 such cases have been reported. Local pilots have reported such cases. The Research, Design and Standards Organization has called this system a red flag. But, whether it is the dating of the mine layers or the rating of the railways, no one pays attention to these red flags. Mistakes are made and accidents happen. Because of these cases, in February 2023, the railways issued an order under which all the locomotives using German technology brakes were speed limited. You cannot travel more than 50 km/h on a down gradient. Local pilots were also given rest on long journeys. But, the question is not only about rest, but also about rest of the system. Where the government is focusing on launching new trains, it is also evident that there are around 3 lakh vacancies in the railways. Of these vacancies, around 1.7 lakh are jobs in the safety category. Just imagine how serious this is. Don't get me wrong. I am not saying that new trains should not be launched. Everyone does this. Dr. Ram Singh launched Rajani train. Madhvarav Sindhia launched Shatabdi. Railway Minister Mamata Banerjee launched Duronto. And now, the Prime Minister Modi himself is showing the green flag to India. But the lack of staff is not an issue where the public can ask questions or vote for recruitment. But this is a big issue. Officials have said that due to lack of staff, the pressure on employees has increased. One ground staff has to do 8 to 10 kilometers track inspection every day. Many employees have to repeat 2 shifts back to back. Now, the question is, where there are so many vacancies, the government has been launching new trains for years. So, who will be responsible for manning those new trains and filling those new posts? Now, vacancies are not just a loss for the railways. It is a question of safety. After the Balasore incident, on June 25, 2023, 14 bogies derailed at Andagram railway station in Andhra Pradesh. After this accident, the incident happened due to the microsleep of the loco pilot. The railways fired both the pilots. But many railway associations are questioning the exhaustion of their long working hours. Just think, if a train of thousands of people is run by a loco pilot who is exhausted, what will happen to those people? Now, who can understand the exhaustion better than our politicians? They go into microsleep while listening to long speeches. Even if the camera captures them, they don't regret it. Thankfully, they can only spoil your mood with their speeches. Not the condition of the country. Anyway, leave it. It is normal for trains to be late in India. Just like riots in news debates. But, do you know that between 2022 to 23, due to delay in the railways, the total number of passengers lost 1.1 crore minutes? The punctuality performance of the railways has reached 83.69%. The aim of the Railway Board was to take it to 95%. Yes, I know, you will say that this is why India is launching high-speed trains, after which, the trains will run very fast. Now, an RTI was launched. It found that the average speed of all trains in India is between 36 km per hour and 71 km per hour. This is the average speed of the Indian railways. Now, let's see if Vande Bharat will change this situation. The Vande Bharat Express was built to run at a speed of 180 km per hour. In the last 2 years, it has been able to reach a speed of 83 km per hour. Why? Because the government has built new trains for the new India. But the trains that will run on the railway tracks will be the old ones. An article published in The Guardian shows that in the last few years, the number of train accidents has decreased. But the major reason for these accidents has remained the same for years. Train derailments. In the last year, rail accidents have increased by 37%. So, our track record is getting worse. In the last few years, the government has spent crores of rupees to modernize the railways. High-speed trains, electrification, net zero. But the railways are still safe. The anti-collision system is still operational. 99.9% of the railways are safe. But the anti-collision system has not been introduced in the railways. Experts say that the government should focus on the safety of the railways. Since 2014, the government has increased the budget for railways. But the investment in the safety of the railways is increasing. So, the government should focus on the safety of the railways. Life is precious. If you are still with me, then please relax. This chapter is like Christopher Nolan's movie. Railways get their revenue from 3 sources. 1. Internal resources. 2. Budget. 3. Extra budgetary resources. In most cases, the railways get their revenue from internal resources, but the government gets its revenue from extra budgetary resources. In the last few years, there has been a huge drop in the railways' revenue. In 2013 to 2014 and 2023 to 2024, the expenses of the railways have increased by 7.2%. But the annual revenue has increased by 6.3%. So, expenditure is easily more. In 2023 to 2024, the railways are expected to have a surplus of 2,000 crores. In 2021 to 2022, the railways had a deficit of 15,000 crores. Let's try to understand the operating ratio of the railways. The operating ratio of the railways has increased by 107%. So, the railways have spent 107 rupees to earn 100 rupees. In the last few years, the operating ratio of the railways has decreased by 101.8%. In 2019 to 20, the operating ratio of the railways was 114.2%. In 2020 to 21, the operating ratio of the railways was 131.6%. According to the CAG report, 9 out of 17 railways are operating at a loss. It may sound strange, but the railways earn the most from freight trains. The passenger train earns only 26% of the railway's revenue. The rest of the revenue is from freight trains. In 2013 to 2022, the railways spent 1.5% of the railway's revenue. The majority of freight trains are using coal, iron, and cement. 40% of the railway's revenue is from coal transport. As we move towards alternative fuels, the railway's revenue will decrease. On the other hand, the railways earn 1 rupee per passenger, 2 rupees after spending 10 rupees. If the third AC and AC chair car are removed, all railway coaches will suffer losses. Recently, the government has announced a 25% reduction in ticket prices for Vande Bharat and other AC trains. These subsidies and discounts are important for the passengers. Because even today, most of the passengers travel in sleeper class. This means that the railways will have to focus on freight trains. Government and news channels enjoy inaugurating and cutting the ribbon. But after the inauguration, the shops are not even open. According to the Times of India's 2020 article, Bhubaneswar's Bichapalli station, inaugurated by the Prime Minister, receives only 2 passengers per day. The station earns 20 rupees per day. Because of the decrease in revenues, the railways have to rely on budget and borrowing. In the last few years, the railways have been dependent on extra budgetary sources. In 2015 to 16, the majority of the railways were dependent on these extra budgetary sources. In 2021 to 22, the railways had to rely on these extra budgetary sources for 70,000 crores. Today, the government is trying to fulfill its promise. But the truth is that out of the 122 ongoing projects of the rail network, 96% are lagging behind. Out of these projects, the delay is only 5 years. This delay also affects project costs. For example, out of 173 projects, 76% have already seen cost escalation. Now, there is a lack of surplus. Expenses are also increasing. Now, should we increase our earnings first? Or should we think about our safety? Then the government said, leave it. It is the season of erection. Because of this, the backlog of railways is increasing. By the end of 2020 to 21, the old assets that had to be replaced by the Railways Depreciation Reserve Fund have reached a value of 1 lakh crores. More than half of this value is due to the tracks that had to be renewed. Now, if the old assets are not properly managed, tracks will not be renewed. Staff pressure will not be reduced, then incidents like Balasore will happen again. And I am not the only one saying this. Railway staff, BJP MPs themselves have raised this issue. I agree that our country is changing. Who doesn't want high-speed trains? But where is the country's rail service going? Is it going to the tracks? Or will it go away from the tracks? Is high-speed trains the only way to improve the railways? Or is there better security? Strong infrastructure? Paying attention to working conditions? Isn't this also an issue? Or should we just ignore Vande Bharat? After Vande Bharat, we will have to deal with cracks, leaks, and safety issues. But yes, new trains will be brought. but don't say that everything else is fine. Which even mainstream media will not show you. Then, balasore will happen again. But we don't have the courage to see the flaws in the system.